Starting from the primary cave dweller got a lance. The destiny of realms and domains has been fashioned by men who dominated its utilization, and concerning a few men, they have forever been exceptional at taking up arms than others. Spartans, a champion race in old Greece, were seemingly the best military culture throughout the entire existence of fighting. Straightforward young men were detracted from their moms at the period of only 7 to be enlisted in the Agog, a fierce military foundation where they spent their other lives getting ready for war. It is said that the main help, a straightforward, was at any point given from military. Preparation was the point at which he was at war. Experiencing childhood in Sparta was difficult, as the austere elderly folks utilized brutal and special strategies to prepare their young men. Since early on they educated their young men in the rule of natural selection, yet additionally in the endurance of the trickiest. Straightforward young men were given negligible food and were urged to take proportions as long as they didn't get captured, subsequently isolating the stupid and feeble from the solid and shrewd. The ones who succeeded in preparing turned out to be important for the tip-top troop. Known as the jump lights, each straightforward hoplite employed a long lance, short blade, and a little round safeguard. The vital austere strategy was the faltering, which required profoundly focused and composed moves, just conceivable in down-to-earth war zone conditions. After extended and thorough preparation, it was this very strategy utilized by the eminent 300 simple bounce lights to guard the restricted pass of Thermop against 100,000 Persians for 3 days, as per setup accounts by Plutarch. Straightforward moms just before war told their children, "Simple, return with your safeguard," or on top of it, "The Norseman cometh," is a cry that reverberated across huge districts of seaside Europe, reporting the unavoidable appearance of a Viking striking party. While all Vikings were merciless, among them were a different variety of Norse fighters, the berserkers. These heroes performed secret customs and utilized substances to get away from the domain of common humans. They were resistant to any aggravation and exhaustion, charging as frantic dogs into fight, battling stripped with no defensive layer. Seeing even a little fun of berserkers driving an assault had the foe basically dropping their weapons and running. They didn't really like procedure and governmental issues, yet essentially took the path of least resistance. While they were ostensibly more unnerving than some other champion gathering, they were excessively risky to their benefit. The berserkers' furor and hostility made them commit wild demonstrations. For example, knowing their safeguard and killing their own men during the most intense part of the conflict. As the name proposes, they went totally crazy. We intrude on this program to bring you Austere Exhibition, our own personal bit-by-bit manual for simulated intelligence content creation. Rejuvenate your imaginative thoughts. Why you seem to be a person with an arrangement from realistic movies and comic experiences to history and striking visuals. Our instructional exercises make learning in-house procedures, industry prompts, and quick movements direct and charming. Beginning now at AustereGallery.com and make your own heavenly adventures. Nights were the most remarkable and baffling champion gathering in history, presented first as a strict clique dedicated to safeguarding the existence of pioneers visiting Jerusalem. They dynamically extended their obligations to become warriors in Crusader wars, and rather shockingly, additionally filled in as the world's earliest financial framework. This unusual plan came about in light of the fact that travelers would store their possessions to the request as credit. The knight request additionally got enormous amounts of gifts from Europe for their blessed obligations with its reasonable mission and adequate assets. The request developed quickly. Knights were progressed shock troops in key clashes of the campaigns. Their vigorously reinforced knights mounted on war ponies would charge at the foe in front of the fundamental Crusader armed force, trying to break resistance lines. They were prepared to battle till death. As the knight crossed, on their protection was an image of suffering. Their white mantle was such a lot of a piece of their life that they could neither eat nor talk with their brethren without decorating it. The knight code of life was totally not quite the same as other military orders whose heroes were acquainted with distinction and magnificence. Knights then again were approached to reside in destitution, totally gave to God and religion. which is fairly entertaining on the grounds that the request, all in all, was pretty much as rich as the Pope men were supposed to be liberated from. Exorbitant smugness. After joining the gathering, one needed to disregard all his material. Cravings attached with family were cut off everlastingly, and taking people for joy was prohibited, despite the fact that it wouldn't be astounding on the off chance that they figured out how to get some activity each now. And, while nights were the most safe fighter bunch, the immortals enjoyed a truly incredible lifestyle of each and every old man. They were obvious for the huge measure of gold they enhanced as they enjoyed delight, carrying on with a sumptuous way of life. Immortals was a name given by Herodotus to this tip-top infantry unit of 10,000 troopers in the multitude of the Persian realm. Their support of this number prompted their name, the Immortals. Each time an Eternal was killed, injured, become sick, or resigned, they were quickly supplanted, the Immortals, in a split second eliminated there, dead from the combat zone, and showed no carcasses to their adversaries. This training offered the deception that these heroes were not humans. Regardless of the number of the adversaries that killed, their number would stay. Areas of strength for 10,000 body protective layer contained covering plates of sparkling bronze and metal with the Immortals' bosom plates blazing in the daylight. Numerous urban communities basically gave up when they previously saw them approach. Their principal weapon was a lance, 6 feet extended period of time. Their wicker safeguards were shrouded in calfskin. The Immortals would remain in activity as the tip-top unit of the Persian realm until they met their end through a man more undying than them, Alexander the Incomparable. They were crushed because of Alexander in the skirmish of Gamella, which checked their end as well as their realms, maybe not. Unfading after all, like a tempest released from the very steps that birthed them, Mongol pony riders plunged upon countries, making them wiped out the main impetus that led to the biggest domain in history. They shot their bolts with surprising exactness and influence while riding at full dash. Mongol tribesmen were the first individuals of the pony, and horsemanship was a way of life for them. They rehearsed since early on, improving their skill to shoot bolts actually from horseback. One specific Mongol weapon that frequently influenced the equilibrium was the one-of-a-kind recurve bow that, when joined with a quick horse as a terminating stage, could be completely pulverizing. With the dependence on light rangers, Mongol portability was unbelievable. Every cavalryman moved with 3 or 4 ponies and could pivot his mount voluntarily. This versatility permitted them to utilize their most deadly fight strategy, the feigned retreat, in which they attracted the foe, withdrew, and afterward, with the guile of wolves, circled and destroyed their dumbfounded prey. The Roman realm, history's longest-standing realm, owed its glory to the steady cut of its military. The Roman legionnaires, at the level of its influence, Rome had around 35 serving armies. Yet the title of the best Roman army is frequently presented to Legio ex Equestris, shaped by Julius Caesar during his stretch as the legislative leader of Hispania. Army 10 mounted was Caesar's most memorable order. The army battled under Caesar in the Gallic conflicts, assuming a conclusive part in winning the Clash of Alesia and vanquishing Gaul. The gathering immediately turned into Caesar's #1 and most dependable army in the nationwide conflict against Pompey. They demonstrated their reliability and may once more in fights at Usura and Farcus. The legionaries of Legate Equestri were furnished with the exemplary Roman weapon, the gladius short sword, pilum, weighty spear, and scotum, huge safeguard. Their most popular second is recognized as the Clash of Munda, the last struggle of the Roman nationwide conflict, where children of Pompey took arms against Caesar. Seeing his side in a difficult situation, Caesar by and by entered the fray, battling close by his #1 heroes as he shouted to his army, "Are you not afraid to surrender your general to?" Young men, the 10th pushed back the Pompeians, energetically winning the day and the conflict in a limited capacity to focus time. Leo X had turned into Rome's best army, yet what they had neglected was the way that their destiny was excessively entwined with mini Caesar's death in 2044 BC. His embraced child, Octavian, perceived the need to disband this army, who was plainly faithful to his late uncle in spite of the fact that Leo X was exclusively in help for under 20 years. Their effect and accomplishment as a trooper bunch was more significant than a portion of different armies who stayed in help for quite a long time. The king's pride and a considerable arm of the Ottoman military, the Janissaries arose as the principal genuine standing armed force in Europe right up to the 14th century. Men would simply be called up to battle and when a ruler or master required them. Once the conflict was over, the men gotten back to their typical life. Anyway, the development of the Janus unit would change this eternity. Yet even their foundation was a mishap. It was during the rule of Murad I who requested that a gathering of Christian men taken as detainees of war be switched over completely to Islam, and afterward act as his own fighters. He was so dazzled with the consequences of his little undertaking that he requested it to be rehashed. So whenever they got the open door, troops of the Ottoman realm would take youthful Christian young men, generally from the Balkan locale, make them convert, and train them as fighters following on from the reign of Murad. The unit filled in size and in solidarity to turn into the ruler's most dependable facing unit in a conflict or an attack. Their errand was to hang tight for the cutting-edge troops to pierce an opening in the foe's guards, and afterward they would go after amassing in and going for the kill with their bows or rifles. This very strategy was especially compelling during the triumph of Constantinople in 1453. To keep up with their discipline, Janissaries were taboo from taking significant others, similar as the knights, carrying on with an existence of chastity and filling in as all-day fighters assisted them with staying on the ball, as the unit became quite possibly the earliest military gathering to utilize black powder and utilize guns for a huge scope. Anyway, their developing power turned into a blade that cuts both ways, as they had an impact in the stool political circle, frequently affecting arrangement of high-positioning authorities and even kings. This prompted to inward debasement and decrease in 1826. Ruler Mahmud II disbanded the gathering, being restless that the center had neglected its unique reason to ensure they were done for good. He had in excess of 6,000 Janissaries executed. The samurai champions were the knights of primitive Japan. They were gifted contenders, as well as were expected to carry on with their entire lives. As per the moral code of Bushido, otherwise called method of the conflict, the samurai partook in a raised status in the public eye, and were the only ones allowed to convey swords consistently. Their sharp edge was known as the katana, an extremely sharp sword that could cut a man in half. They likewise employed the yumiya, longbow utilized successfully both by walking and horseback. Dissimilar to the ninja fighters of Japan, the samurai had faith in battling out in the open, preferably as a double or one-on-one battle. Talented in jujitsu and other hand-to-hand fighting, they were the most flexible warriors of Japan in fight. Samurai were key, frequently utilizing a blend of guerrilla strategies in open field battle, supported by a significant feeling of discipline and obligation they trusted in passing on as respectably as they lived, and frequently pondered upon their demise to eliminate any feelings of trepidation. Assuming a samurai felt he had flopped in his undertaking, he should commit seppuku, custom self-destruction. This was the main way for him to recapture his honor. Anyway, the samurai power and impact, similar as the Janissary, turned into their demise. The unbending social progressive system and their critical political power prompted interior hardship and a continuous decay, finishing in their inevitable disintegration. During the Meiji Reclamation in the 19th century, their shadow kept on falling over current Japan, as reflected during WWII, when a few officials in the Japanese Supreme Armed Force performed seppuku as opposed to allow themselves to be disrespected by being taken prisoner.